In the dark alleys of Megacity 1, even the most fearless hunter can become prey. When the Yautja arrived, Judge Dredd stood his ground, and the xenomorphs soon followed, turning the city into a war zone of blood and steel. As Predator Badlands prepares to strike theaters, we're looking back at the crossover that defined brutality in comics. But before we get started, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons. Those 2 small clicks from you will help us tremendously in bringing you more of these marvelous videos, and maybe consider becoming a member through the link in the description. So gear up, strap in, and grab some popcorn. We're heading straight into the carnage where the hunter, the hunted, and the law collide. Predator vs. Judge Dredd, Issue 1, A Worthy Prey. It's past midnight in the desolate post-atomic wasteland of what many now call home. In the middle of nowhere, Gomer, along with his robot companion Ben, is stuck in the porous dirt that now makes up most of the surface. Their vehicle's axle has been damaged, and while Ben takes a closer look at the wheel, Gomer spots a green streak of light brightening up the night sky. This beautiful display in the post-midnight sky is in stark contrast to what we see on the ground. Buried remnants of civilizations, random smoke rising on the horizon, Gomer and Ben's sunken feet in the porous dirt, and what looks like a military-grade vehicle for 2 normal folks that seem to be mere travelling merchants. The vehicle is an 8-wheeled monstrosity, complete with a reinforced chassis and a mounted automatic turret at the top. I guess this is what it takes to survive as a travelling merchant in the near future. Gomer is in awe of the light in the sky, and he calls it a shooting star. Ben, however, spots the discrepancies in this spectacular display. The light is exceptionally bright, too bright to be a shooting star. This is when what they assume to be a shooting star touches ground a few hundred feet away from them. Gomer tries to pacify Ben by telling him not to worry. He has seen plenty of meteors falling to Earth back in the day. Hell, he even saw one as big as a rad truck come down back in 2115 when he was doing the Texas City run. Gomer quickly rushes off to check out what he presumes to be a meteor, and Ben clearly doesn't like the sound of this. They should be fixing the axle and heading back to Megacity 1 and not chasing random meteors. After all, this is a bad place to get stuck with their vehicle, and as Ben says this, we see Gomer stop dead in his tracks, and though for a moment it seems that it might be due to the random human skull poking from the dirt, it turns out it's because there is no impact crater where the supposed meteor touched down. This baffles Ben and piques his curiosity. How could this meteor have no impact crater? He just saw it touch ground, and so he quickly joins Gomer to see what has come down on Earth. Robots don't have expressions, but in this moment you can swear you see Ben as surprised as Gomer himself, because what they are looking at is an alien ship that is actively burying itself beneath the Earth's surface, as if it's a worm. Ben is the first one to snap out of his daze. They shouldn't be here. This day has just gotten a lot weird. He begs Gomer to head back so that they can quickly fix their axle and get out of here, but Gomer is already daydreaming of what this could mean for them. An alien ship buried underground? You don't see this every day, and Gomer is certain that the judges will reward them handsomely for this find. But little does he know that this is a Yautja ship, and its sole passenger is currently hiding behind some abandoned machinery nearby while keeping a close eye on them. Gomer then snaps out of his dreams and looks at Ben, and this is when he notices 3 red dots in a triangular pattern on his face. Gomer is slightly amused by this, but if he knew what this meant, he would have been running for his life. The very next second, Ben's head explodes into 1,000 pieces, and Gomer recoils in horror as he watches his longtime companion turned into a part of the debris that surrounds him. Gomer quickly pulls out his firearm, and this might have been his biggest mistake. The Yautja are known to hunt worthy prey that can fight back. As long as Gomer was disarmed, he might not have been a threat to the creature, but now that he has pulled out his gun, it's a different story altogether. With a shaky voice, Gomer claims that he might be an old man, but he still has some fight left in him, and this is when the same 3 red dots appear on his chest and blow him away to smithereens. Gomer dies instantly, and when the Yautja inspects his sizzling and cauterized body to take his trophy, he quickly realizes that Gomer isn't worthy enough. It's time to find some better prey, and this is when it spots the skyline of Megacity 1 on the horizon, and the Predator hunter knows what this means. More people mean more prey, which means a hearty and challenging hunt. It's 1 a.m. in Mega City 1, which means that the judges have their work cut out for them. This bustling, overpopulated metropolis is full of criminals and thugs who usually come out at night to either fight each other or wage war against those who cause them to lose their jobs. With unemployment having skyrocketed with the onset of automated machines, many of these people now spend their nights indulging themselves in whatever criminal activity pacifies their desires. This is why the judges are needed. In this city, crammed with 400 million people, it is a powder keg with tensions on a short fuse. The judges are the ultimate force to stop criminal activities. Authoritative individuals with the power to issue sentences on the spot. Instant justice. That's how the law stays on top in such an overpopulated city. Mega City 1 has its charms, with floating inns, winding walkways, and floating vehicles. However, these charms are overpowered by the scene unfolding around every corner. Judges chasing criminals, shooting them down to stop them dead in their tracks, and using batons on those who require less force. Among these forces of justice is Judge Dredd, who we get introduced to as he sentences a bunch of criminals to 12 months in prison for disorderly conduct. Sporting their iconic helmet and metal badges, the judges are distinct personalities among the grim reality of Mega City 1. After taking care of these criminals, Dredd speeds away on his bike and then shoots down 2 criminals fleeing on jetpacks after committing armed robbery. These 2 are sentenced to 10 years of prison time for their actions, and after assigning Judge Resick and Cubes to take care of these 2, Dredd speeds away to respond to a call of a massive gang war happening in the Yautja block of the city. Here, at the site of this gang war, unbeknownst to anyone, the Yautja from earlier stalks the criminals from the roofs while cloaked by his chameleon field. The surf gang is fighting a Juve gang with the letter Y printed on all their jackets. This is an all-out war, and while the Juve gang fights from the ground, the surf gang attacks them from above while zipping around on their hoverboards. Many are killed as the gang on the ground targets the surfboards instead of the men riding them, and when one of them utters the phrase, "Have some-o this sky trash," we see the Yautja pick this phrase up and add it to its vocabulary. The Yautja readies his plasma caster, but before he can take aim, the judges show up on the scene and begin incapacitating and arresting everyone in sight immediately. The gangs know what this means, and they start fleeing in different directions to maximize their chances of getting away. The judges give chase and corner them in a dead end, and silently, the Yautja follow them as well. The surf gang bolts in opposite directions, and judges aboard the hovercrafts are ordered to take care of them. Meanwhile, on the ground, judges Rourke, Tulk, and Solar apprehend the Juves. Rourke scares them by acting like an old-time police officer, and though this was a prank, Tulk reminds him that they are on the street nowadays because the cops couldn't be trusted with justice. Rourke is naturally perturbed by this, and he coldly tells Tulk to remember this statement the next time one of these Juves is about to blow his head off. However, this is when a plasma caster blast opens up a huge gaping hole in Rourke's chest and kills him instantly. The Juves and the judges are both taken aback by this horrific new development, but when the judges try to respond and spot their attacker, they can't find anything or anyone that might have done this. This is when Dredd shows up on the scene, and as he gets off his bike, he watches another plasma caster blast graze Solar's abdomen. She is injured but not dead, and more importantly, she has managed to spot her attacker using the infrared view on her visor. She quickly tells every judge in the vicinity to switch to the same, and when they do, they finally spot the Yautja up on the rooftops, expertly stalking them and picking their shots. Dredd instantly pulls out his trusty lawgiver handgun and begins firing high explosive rounds in the Yautja's approximate direction. The ensuing explosions catch the creature off guard and send it tumbling down into one of the buildings as it crashes through the skylight. Dredd then checks in on Solar and Tulk to make sure they're all right. Solar is already bandaging up her abdomen, and Dredd informs them that the creature likely wasn't from Earth. He then orders a med wagon for his comrades, and despite Tulk's protesting cries, he drives off into the building where the Yautja fell. In Inside, Dredd finds a broken skylight, a huge piece of sharp glass on the ground, and lots of green blood. Now aware that the creature is bleeding and injured, Dredd slowly pulls out his lawgiver once again and tiptoes through the building, following the trail of blood which leads him into utter darkness. There, before Dredd can respond, the Yautja ambushes him with his combistic and stabs him through the shoulder, which causes him to drop the lawgiver. Dredd can't help but feel like a caught fish as he is pulled upwards against his will by the predator. He informs his seniors that he might have bitten more than he could chew over the comms as he kicks the predator in the head, which causes it to lose its biomask. Judge Dredd pulls the combistic out of his shoulder, and when he looks up, he finds a raging Yautja snarling at him while wielding his wrist blades. Dredd quickly arms himself with a metal pipe that is nearby as he fends off the creature's attacks. It takes only 2 strikes for Dredd to realize that the creature is way more powerful than him, and before he can come up with a strategy, the Yautja pays Dredd back for his kick earlier by kicking Dredd and sending him tumbling down the catwalk they were on. Dredd free falls for 10 to 15 feet before smacking against pure concrete, which instantly knocks him out. The predator is eager to finish the job, but this is when the other judges rush in to rescue Dredd, and the predator decides to retreat so that he can continue this fight some other day. The next morning, Dredd wakes up in his sleep machine only to realize that Solar is in the pod beside him. Dredd quickly gets out and starts wearing his uniform, and the ensuing conversation reveals that Dredd is quite injured and that he should really be resting. His shoulder was heavily stitched and bandaged once they recovered him, and though he didn't break his spine, it is still heavily bruised. But Dredd is only focused on one thing, the alien creature that managed to get the best of him last night, and this is when Solar is forced to give him the bad news. The judges never found the Yautja after it incapacitated Dredd, and while Dredd was recovering, the predator managed to take out 2 more judges, Phillips and Cook. When the other judges found Cook, he was missing his skull and spine. We then switch to Judge Schaefer's quarters as she is woken up by Judge Morse and ordered to report to the Operations Room 9. He suspects that Judge Schaefer has some specialized knowledge regarding this latest case that he and the other judges are dealing with. In Operations Room 9, the judges are being briefed about Phillips and Cook's death. Phillips' body was found in Mercy Plaza, while Cook's remains were found on the mile-high Conaps in the next sector, which tells them that the creature can move exceptionally fast. However, before Morse can say more, Dredd shows up for the briefing, and though Morse tries to chastise him for being out of bed, Dredd quickly shuts Morse up by telling him that this is his case and that he is going to handle things his own way. He coldly dismisses Morse and lets Tulk update and brief him in Morse's absence. Morse stares daggers at them all as he leaves the room, while Tulk, in the background, tells Dredd that after analysing the creature's blood, they know exactly what it is: a predator, an alien species that first attacked the Earth in the 20th century. They are sport hunters, equipped with plasma weapons and electronic camouflage, which makes them virtually undetectable unless viewed through an infrared filter. Their only known weakness when on Earth is their air supply. It is believed they can't survive for long without the air filters in their biomask. This is when Judge Schaefer shows up for the briefing, and upon asking her some questions, Dredd learns that Morse thought it might be a good idea to add her to the case. Schaefer is a telepath, and Morse thought that she could help them locate the creature, but Schaefer has another connection to the predator, because Dutch Schaefer is her great-great-grandfather. He was the only survivor of the first human encounter with the predator race, which is why Schaefer has always taken an interest in the predators. She tells Dredd about the Yautja's code of conduct and the little she knows about their culture. She tells Dredd that the Yautja race lives to hunt anything and everything as long as it's a worthy opponent. They only hunt the most dangerous specimens from any species as if they're the only worthy ones. Despite their ruthlessness, they seem to have a strange warrior code, and as Schaefer continues to tell Dredd about the creatures, we see that the predator has already found his safe space in Mega City 1, and that his first trophy, the skull and spine of Judge Cook, is already on display as it bandages its leg. Schaefer goes on to tell Dredd that the predators take trophies of their kills, commit sickening acts, yet for some reason they are known to ignore defenseless victims. Only the best will do, and this is when Dredd puts 2 and 2 together. The best in Mega City 1 are the judges, which means that the creature is going to come for them. Schaefer agrees, which is contrasted by the visual of the Yautja holding up Judge Cook's badge as another accessory to his first trophy. Predator vs. Judge Dredd, Issue 2, just a cut. We start this issue the next night after the Predator attacks in Mega City 1. This is a derelict part of the city, with older blocks that are no longer in use. A perfect picking spot for Juves and the surf gang alike. Full of old, abandoned construction equipment and decaying buildings, such blocks offer a nice incentive to these criminals to find ancient hidden items that can go for a lot on the black market. The only downside is that the buildings are crumbling and they might be infested with pests that one might not want to deal with. Two surf gang members slowly sneak their way into one of these buildings while carefully avoiding the gaze of any judges passing by. Once inside, their conversation reveals that even though such sites are easy pickings, they can still be regularly patrolled by judges to catch wannabe criminals. As the man in the mohawk breaks down a decaying wooden door, we see that these two have bitten off way more than they can chew, because on the other side of the door is the Yautja, and as it turns out, this was his new hideout. The Yautja quickly dons his biomask and hides amidst the darkness, while the two completely unaware criminals make their way into the room. The man with the mohawk is overly confident. He thinks this is going to be an easy job, and he starts joking about what these two members of the surf gang might say if they ran into a judge in here. The irony being that neither of them has noticed the grisly remains of Judge Cook that the Yautja took as a trophy around a day before hanging in the air right behind them. This is when the other man turns around and loses all momentum in his body due to the sheer horror in front of his eyes, while the man in the mohawk continues to joke. When he notices that his friend is staring at something behind him, he too turns around, only to first stumble back because he's face to face with a judge and then yelp out in terror as he realizes that there is no body attached to the head and spine. They both quickly escape the building and call in their findings to the Hall of Justice, and moments later they are leading a band of judges to the building where they discovered Cook's head. The judges break down the fences and deploy a two-pronged assault, assuming that the Predator might still be in there. A team of judges charges in from the ground, while another team circles around and closes in the gap from the roof. Once they reach the location pointed out by the two surf gang members, they start their assault by throwing in a concussion grenade. But after blindingly firing a couple of rounds into the room, they realize that the creature is nowhere to be seen, and all they've done is desecrate the remains of their fellow judge in this process. Meanwhile, we now get a glimpse at the better looking parts of Mega City 1, the Shopera, a bustling city centre with multiple levels and the ultimate shopping destination for every need. A shopping destination that is now the target of our feared Yautja, who is stalking the place while being cloaked by its chameleon field. The creature spots a group of judges racing towards the district to respond to a couple of petty crimes, and this is when it decides to make its move. It leaps down onto one of the buildings, rips open the roof, and then jumps down and begins stalking the judges through the skylight. Meanwhile, the judges investigating its last known campsite, where Cook's skull and spine have been discovered, inform Dredd that the creature was definitely here after analysing the blood samples. They're going to search the entire block just to be safe, but they suspect that the creature has fled after its hideout was discovered by the two surf gang boys, who we see being booked for trespassing by one of the other judges in the background. Dredd quickly realises that the creature didn't attack the surf gang members, likely because they aren't worthy prey. Judge Dredd, who is in the Hall of Justice alongside Morse, then goes and checks in on Schaefer. Schaefer is from their Psi division, which means that Dredd is expecting her to find out the location of the creature using the blood sample she has been provided. Their conversation also reveals to us that Schaefer is just an auxiliary, and that's the way she likes it. She doesn't like guns or violence, which is why being an auxiliary suits her. This way, she can pick and choose her cases, which are mostly missing persons reports. Dredd tells her to keep trying because this is a special case where they could use a break, but the problem is that finding someone through telepathy isn't exactly easy. Using it on humans is one thing, but an alien creature, especially one that doesn't want to be found, is a different thing altogether. This is when Dredd is informed that they are getting reports of the creature at Shopera, and we then see one of the judges apprehending a petty criminal who had stolen a purse. As he is apprehending the felon, 3 red dots appear on his back, and then a plasma caster blast kills him instantly. While his fellow judges try to find the culprit, the Yautja uncloaks himself and begins his assault. The other judges immediately sound code red and inform the HQ about this latest development. alert, but they are no match for the Predator's plasma caster, because the very next second, another judge is blown into 1,000 pieces of flesh that scatter in every direction. The judges pull out their lawgivers to retaliate, but this is when the Yautja turns on his chameleon field again. In retaliation, all the judges switch to infrared, but when one of them tries to ambush the Predator, the creature decapitates him using his combi stick. Dredd, meanwhile, is already racing towards Schaefer on his bike, along with Tolk, and as he gets there, he orders a complete lockdown of the shopping district. The Yautja, meanwhile, is strategizing his next attack and is right now hiding on the roof at the back of the district. Judges Miller and Rodman are carefully tracking the creature while keeping the HQ updated on their findings, but little do they know that they are being stalked by the creature every step of the way. Miller is a bit spooked, and he suggests that maybe they should wait for reinforcements. However, this is when Rodman points his handheld light upwards and spots the Yautja. This prompts the creature to instantly attack them, which results in Miller getting shot in the face by a plasma caster blast. Thankfully, his judge's helmet saves him from the blast, but this is when the creature leaps down onto a beam nearby and uses his combi stick to stab Rodman through the neck. By the time Miller gathers himself, it's already too late. The Yautja has now leapt down and is ready to kill Miller using his wrist blades, but the sad part is that Miller is still under the impression that Rodman is still alive due to the way his body is propped up against the Yautja's combi stick. Miller sacrifices himself, hoping this will give Rodman enough time to escape, but sadly, both of them end up succumbing to the Predator's scheming assault. By the time Dredd arrives at the scene, he is told that Rodman and Miller are both presumed dead, considering how deadly the Predator is. The two last reported to the HQ around 5 minutes ago. The entire district, meanwhile, is full of people, and the judges have a hard time controlling the crowd and evacuating the area. Life in Mega City 1 is quite divided. If you're even a little bit rich, you don't even travel the same way as those who are poorer than you. Take the people who can afford trains, for example. They think they are far superior to those who travel by foot, and they find themselves quite bubbled and isolated from the real-time happenings in Mega City 1. Thus, as a train passes by the Schaefer district, everyone inside is quite intrigued by the commotion on the ground, but each one inside has their own biases. Many of them assume that this entire scene was simply caused by one of the lowlifes going ballistic after getting his hands on a last blaster, and this is when we're shown another perspective of those residing in the city as a man says, "Yeah, 400 million people in this stinking city who don't want to take out a few every now and then." This is a grim and sadistic take, but many people around him nod in agreement. As this continues and we keep getting to hear the crowd's perspective on this entire scene, we learn that many of these people were hoping to see a few casualties on the ground. It's the only reason why they are staring out the window in the first place. But sadly for them, there's nothing to see on the ground at this moment. And surprisingly, the driver slowing down so that everybody could get a better look at the commotion has entirely gone to waste, in their opinion. That might be the case for most of them, but the train slowing down was especially beneficial to the Yautja, who had managed to hitch a ride on it by hanging on its underside, and by the time Dredd's team is assessing the scene and discovering Rodman and Miller's bodies, the Yautja has already made it halfway across the city thanks to the train. When he's at the ideal location, the creature leaps down and begins surveying the area to find its new hideout. Dredd, meanwhile, is naturally brooding and biting his lip out of anger as he is informed that the creature is nowhere to be found in the shopping district. 5 judges dead, all of their badges missing, of course. The creature has fled, hit and run. It's the only way to fight and hunt superior numbers, and Dredd knows that the creature is smart enough to execute an assault like this. But this is when he is contacted by the HQ because another judge has just been killed on 2049th Street. His badge is missing as well, and this looks like another Predator killing. The entire department is now realizing that the creature is hunting them all down, and for now, it seems that the Predator is on the winning side. Dredd races back to the HQ on his bike, and we are then shown that night's news broadcast. As expected, it's an over-the-top piece about the recent Predator killings. The newscaster is obnoxiously dramatic with his reading as he tells the people how 11 judges have died in the past 24 hours. He then scares his audience by telling them to lock their doors and bar their windows because the Predator isn't a creature to be messed with. 7 feet tall, capable of going completely invisible, and armed with plasma weapons, this apex hunter is no joke. Thankfully, the creature creature is only hunting the judges for now, which means the populace is safe. But for how long? What happens when the creature decides to target civilians? How will the judges keep them safe? What or who is going to prevent this massacre that is waiting to happen? Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice, the judges are breathing a sigh of relief because thankfully there haven't been any new attacks by the predators, but this doesn't mean they can sit back and wait. Dredd knows that the creature is likely looking for a new safe house after losing its last one this morning, and considering how efficient it is, it has likely found one by now. Dredd is clearly struggling to keep his anger contained. Losing 11 judges in a single day is no joke, and when Schaefer tells him that she has nothing to offer him despite trying for the entire day, his bubble finally bursts and he lashes out at her. How many judges will have to lose their lives by the time Schaefer comes up with something concrete? How many more men will have to lose their lives so that Schaefer can finally do her job? She is getting nowhere, and it might be better for the Justice Department to get another psi unit for this job, and this is when Schaefer retaliates. Psionic abilities aren't a joke. They can't simply be turned on or off with the flick of a switch. One needs to concentrate, but instead of understanding her, Dredd simply mocks her by saying that she doesn't seem to have any abilities at all, and this is when Schaefer reaches her limit. She has had enough. She doesn't need to take this from Dredd, and thus she storms out. And when Dredd tries to stop her using his authority, Schaefer angrily turns around and says, "Shove your orders. I am not one of your underlings. You want to get someone else? Get someone else." Once she is gone, Dredd realizes that he was a bit harsh on her, but he can't just sit here waiting for Schaefer to produce results. He is desperate, and thus he orders Tulks to get another telepath from Psi Division so that they can get to the bottom of this situation quickly. We then get a glimpse into Dredd's inner monologue, and it is revealed that he knows that he is angry at himself and not Schaefer, that the anger moments ago was misdirected. He had the chance to stop the Predator during their first encounter, but he failed, and now, because of him, 11 of his fellow judges are dead. And how many more are going to die before they finally catch this Predator? Schaefer, meanwhile, is seething with anger as she gets into her vehicle. She even forgot to hand in the Predator's blood sample before leaving, but right now, she can't be bothered to go back, and thus she speeds away. As she is driving away furiously, Schaefer is lost in her thoughts. Just because she is a descendant of Dutch Schaefer doesn't mean she has some sort of an innate connection to the Predators. However, while she is lost in her thoughts, she fails to notice that she is about to have a head-on collision with an oncoming truck, and as she and the driver of the truck erratically weave away from each other, it results in a minor crash. Schaefer and the furious driver of the truck get out of their vehicles moments later, and though the latter is screaming at her, Schaefer tries to defuse the situation by telling the driver that she only suffered a minor cut during the crash. She then licks the blood on her hand, and this is when she gets visions of the Predator as it stares at the trophies it gathered today. She can clearly see the creature and where it is, and this is when Schaefer realizes that it wasn't her blood on her hand. She never even had a cut. It was the creature's blood that spilled on her after the test tube in her hand broke, and upon realizing that consuming the blood gave her a direct psionic connection to the creature, Schaefer quickly consumes the entire vial as the truck driver watches on in bewilderment. Predator vs. Judge Dredd. Issue 3, Promises You Can't Keep. After having consumed the Predator's blood, Schaefer has gone into some sort of trance right in the middle of the street beside her car. The truck driver and the civilians are frantically trying to contact the judges, while Schaefer, in her trance, realizes that the Predator can sense her now that their psionic connection is so strong. It can feel her probing its mind, and it knows that she can see him as he props up trophy after trophy in its hideout. But there is something else that Schaefer can see, a judge who is alive and strung up by a rope in the creature's hideout. Her connection lasts long enough for her to make out the judge's name, Breen, Judge Breen. Schaefer quickly calls in her findings to Dredd, and after checking in on Breen's whereabouts, Dredd is informed that Breen has been missing ever since he decided to investigate the mysteriously open 2012 gate to the Undercity. Schaefer's information checks out, and Dredd quickly sends in a hovercraft hovercraft to fetch Schaefer and bring her back to the Hall of Justice. Dredd then orders Tulk to accompany him as they head to the Undercity, and while walking out, he orders Command to double the guard on every exit from that sector and to ready an assault team and have it waiting at Gate 2012. The Predator, meanwhile, is toying with Breen, and Breen is itching for the creature to get it over with. The Predator starts by slashing Breen's chest using his wrist blades, but even in that moment, it senses Schaefer spying on it, and for some reason, this psionic connection seems to be taking a toll on it. Breen, meanwhile, jokes and mocks the creature as it doubles over in pain, but little does he know that Schaefer can feel its pain too. She, too, stumbles and breaks out in cold sweats as the psionic connection continues to take a toll on her. The Predator then picks up Breen's Lawgiver, who, in turn, mocks and instigates the creature to use it on him. Lawgivers are intuitive and advanced weapons that have sensors that can figure out the identity of the one trying to pull the trigger. If the person is not a judge, then the weapon has a built-in safety mechanism designed to detonate a minor blast to deter unauthorized personnel. Breen was hoping this mechanism would save his life. However, the Predator is too smart for him. The creature realizes that the weapon has a built-in safety mechanism, and thus, instead of pulling the trigger, it undoes the grip to take a better look at the explosive inside the Lawgiver. Dredd and the rest of the judges, meanwhile, have reached Gate 2012 to the Undercity, and Dredd's assault team consists of 2 Mark 7 war droids equipped with napalm, laser cannons, and automatic trackers. Schaefer soon arrives in the hover vehicle sent for her, and as soon as she lands, she informs Dredd that the creature is dying, and it seems to be in excruciating pain. Schaefer then screams loudly as she gets the vision of the Predator plunging its wrist blades into Breen's torso, and everyone sighs as they realize they have lost another judge to the creature's wrath. We are then given a brief background about the Undercity that now lies beneath Mega City 1, a stark reminder of capitalism, grief, and what became of the world after the Great Atomic War. This Undercity was once the bustling hub of commerce that used to be known as New York City. But after the Atomic War and the decimation of New York, those in power saw it fit not to rebuild New York again. The cleanup and reconstruction bill would have been astronomical, and thus it was far cheaper to simply bury the city under the concrete jungle now known as Mega City 1. These crumbling ruins and decimated remains have now become the home of the alien creature that judges have come to fear in the past 48 hours. Dredd leads the charge into the Undercity while being flanked by Tulk, the other judges, and the war droids. In a way, Dredd admires the Predator. He admires the creature's singleness of purpose and its readiness to take on impossible odds. The creature knows it can't succeed. It must know that it can't destroy all of the judges, and yet it hunts them with extreme precision. In many ways, the creature and Dredd are similar. His career, Dredd's whole being, is characterized by an unbending will, an iron determination just like the Predator's. But tonight, Dredd is determined to be the Predator, and he will make sure that the creature is his prey. This is when Dredd snaps out of his thoughts as they stumble upon Breen's bike, and Dredd tells everyone to ready themselves because the creature knows they're here, and he will be coming for them any moment now. And Dredd is right. The Predator is currently scaling the crumbling skyscrapers of what used to be New York City. However, the judges aren't blinded by its tactics this time. They have the war droids on their side, and their automatic trackers are quickly able to spot the Predator in the skyline above. As soon as the Predator's position is verified, everyone opens fire, and the Predator is forced to leap down from his chosen hiding spot. As it leaps down, the plasma caster is activated, and Tulk is shot in the chest. Dredd quickly saves Schaefer from the oncoming assault and orders the war droids to use napalm. The droids comply, and within seconds, the Predator is covered in hot, searing napalm that refuses to leave the creature's skin. Tulk is mildly injured, but their squad leader needs immediate medical attention, and thus Dredd orders everyone to go topside while he carries on the assault alongside the droids. Schaefer is ordered to go back as well, but due to her psionic link with the creature, she knows, even though badly hurt, the Predator still lives. Schaefer wants to go in alongside Dredd. She thinks she can reason with the Predator and stop this bloodshed, but Dredd won't have it any other way. He is going to make the creature pay, and tonight, the Predator is going to answer for all the lives it has taken. The Predator is hiding in what remains of St. Patrick's Cathedral, and Dredd starts his assault by sending in one of the droids named Wilson to draw the creature's fire. Wilson heads in, locates the predator, but before he can relay the information to Dredd, the droid gets shot in the chest by a plasma caster blast. However, this reveals the creature's location, and when they start firing in its general direction, the predator leaps down, uses its combistic as a grappling hook, and then leaps on top of the other war droid. He then redirects the droid's plasma fire at Wilson's napalm tank, and the ensuing explosion ends the war droid and covers Dredd in napalm as well. Schaefer, meanwhile, runs back into the cathedral despite her orders, hoping to stop this carnage. We then see Dredd removing his uniform to avoid the napalm from getting on his skin, while the predator tries to kill Wilson using his wrist blades. Unfortunately, the metal on the war droid is too dense and it breaks the wrist blades, but this doesn't deter the predator. It uses its teeth to incapacitate Wilson by ripping off essential wires. The droid malfunctions and succumbs to the malfunctioning equipment, which leaves only Dredd to fight the predator. Dredd starts by blasting the predator through its torso using his lawgiver, and he continues assaulting the creature until Schaefer arrives and stops him. The predator uses this opportunity to hit Dredd in the back with a huge rock, which causes Dredd to lose his grip on his lawgiver. The predator then steps on Dredd's arm before he can grab his handgun and then slashes Dredd in the chest with his wrist blades. The predator then grabs the lawgiver, and though Schaefer tries to stop him, the predator shoves her away, and after a tense standoff, and despite knowing that the handgun is rigged to blow, the predator pulls the trigger. The creature loses its right hand in the ensuing explosion, and this gives Dredd the perfect opportunity to plunge his dagger into the creature's heart. This is it. This is the end for the predator, and it roars out loudly one last time before succumbing to its injuries. As they stare at the predator's dead body, Schaefer tells Dredd that the creature knew about the safety mechanism in the lawgiver. It knew what would happen, yet for some reason it pulled the trigger anyway. It was sick, in pain, and dying. Maybe it wanted to die in the end. Maybe it took one final challenge it knew it couldn't overcome. Dredd doesn't feel great about this conclusion, but Schaefer assures him that he should be honoured. Predator vs. Judge Dredd vs. Aliens. Issue 1, It's a Party. It's a dark, cold, rainy night in the swamp, out in the middle of nowhere, as a bleeding Yautja flees and leaps away from an unknown, mysterious threat. The predator is fast, nimble, light as a feather, but his attackers seem to have gotten the better of him. Wielding his combistic, we see that his plasma caster has been busted, and he is clutching his injured abdomen. Usually, the Yautja are fierce predators, apex hunters, but today, on this night, this Yautja is the prey, and something is hunting it. With dwindling chances on the horizon and the fear of letting his culture's technology get into the wrong hands approaching fast, he has no choice but to trigger a distress beacon and drop it on the ground as he continues fleeing. Suddenly, a huge, primitive stone spear comes flying through the air and stabs the Yautja in the gut. The creature stumbles and falls to its knees as a huge lumbering steps out of the shadows, and then another and another. These huge creatures surprisingly speak English, and when their faces are revealed, we learn that they're some sort of human-animal hybrids. A rhino that can stand on 2 legs, a bipedal bear, a somber gorilla, and a screaming raccoon. The rhino jokes that the predator is a funny-looking creature, and though looking funny is no crime in this swamp, trespassing is, and they don't take kindly to trespassers. Suddenly, with this statement, all 3 of them plunge their spears into the Yautja and seemingly end his life. A few hundred meters away from here, a humanoid buck is keeping an eye on the Yautja's crashed ship when he is contacted by the other hybrids we saw earlier. The buck seems to be higher up in the hierarchy, and when the rhino hybrid informs him that they have taken care of their varmint problem, the buck tells them to make sure that the creature is alive because he is from space. They have just found his spaceship, and his possessions are currently being transported back to Dr. Reinstadt's place. Reinstadt, whoever this man is seemingly the top dog that all these hybrids answer to, and apparently the man will be furious if they let the alien die at their hands. This is when the rhino falters because, after being stabbed with stone spears a couple of times, one can only survive for so long. Thankfully, the Yautja is holding on, but barely, and Buck orders them to keep it that way unless they all want their heads on a spike. After this, Buck heads into the Yautja's ship, and the ensuing gallery of weapons and trophies takes him completely by surprise. If their prey had gotten the opportunity to use these weapons on them, they would all all have succumbed very easily. They inspect his weapons and then make for the trophies, skulls from different creatures residing on different planets in the universe. Dr. Reinstott will be very pleased with these finds. Buck quickly orders the humanoid snake beside him to have all of this sent back to the lab, and this is when the snake humanoid questions what good are the dead, decaying skulls to the Doctor, and Buck's reply tells us that Reinstott specializes in DNA slicing. He created all of them after all. If there's anyone on this planet that can extract DNA from these skulls and create the ultimate killing machine, it's Reinstott. Little does Buck know, the DNA of the apex predator of the universe is already here, and he is holding its skull currently in his own hands. Judge Dredd, along with his fellow judges meanwhile, is racing into the desert hot on the heels of a group of cultists that he is currently chasing. They are 5 miles from the border of Alabama, and they stop outside a desolate saloon in the middle of this vast wasteland that the people of Earth call the Cursed Earth. Dredd gets down, parks his bike, and instantly establishes his authority. He gives the cultists 3 seconds to surrender themselves, but when they don't come out, it's time for Dredd to serve up some hot and sizzling justice. He barges in and announces to the patron who they're looking for, a group of terrorist fugitives from Mega City 1 who are reportedly hiding in this very saloon. At first, Dredd and the rest of them find nothing. After all, this is a small place, and neither of the patrons looks like the criminals they're after. But this is when Judge Anderson, who has telepathic abilities, uses her powers and tells them that the cultists are definitely in this place because it reeks of fear and deception. Dredd, however, already knew this, and his ensuing statement tells us that the cultists apparently destroyed the John Corbett block in Mega City 1 upon the orders of their messiah, an emoji robot that they follow closely. Dredd then spots 4 seemingly ordinary mutants on a table in the corner. At first, nothing about them stands out. They look ordinary and like most patrons of this saloon, but this is when Dredd grabs one of them and slams his face into the table. This causes the man's hollow inducer to malfunction, which reveals his true identity. He is one of the cultists they have been looking for. In fact, they all are, and they all have a frowning emoji carved into their heads to signify their cult. The others quickly arm themselves and stage an attack, but they're no match for the judges. Dredd grabs the one attacking him and knocks the man out with a single punch. Gilligan and Anderson start knocking out the rest of them, while Dredd decides to chase after the one that's getting away. Before he does so, he grabs the 2 cultists near him and smashes their faces together to incapacitate them. He then calmly walks out, uses the voice-activated commands on his lawgiver to switch to heat-seeking ammo, and then fires at the fleeing cultist. He then kicks the man, grabs him by the throat, and demands to know the whereabouts of their messiah. He wants to know where Archbishop Emoji is, and surprisingly, this is when the cultist begins to laugh loudly. Because apparently they have managed to do their job, these cultists were simply a distraction, a mere hurdle for the judges that would allow their messiah to put even more distance between them and him. Archbishop Emoji is long gone. They all saw the judges coming from a mile away and thus hatched this plan. This is when we get our first glimpse at the Archbishop, and the cultists weren't lying. The name is quite accurate. He is a robot with a smiley face that talks in modern-day lingo and acronyms and rides a single-wheeled motorcycle while wearing biblical robes. Gilligan quickly uses the scope on him to spot the escaping messiah, and he tells Dredd that the robot is headed for the overgrowth at the edge of the border. This is when Smeg, the owner of the saloon, chimes in and tells them that the Archbishop is as good as dead, because that right there is the Alabama morass, a swampy jungle near Lake Louisiana and Texas City. The swamp is apparently one of the weirder attractions in Cursed Earth and is filled with weird, mutated creatures that call it their home. Anyone who enters the swamp never comes back out alive, and he warns Dredd that going in there would be breaking the mutated creature's law. Unfortunately for them, they don't know that Judge Dredd is the law, and the judges quickly get on their bikes to chase after Archbishop Emoji. We then head to Dr. Reinstott's lab and see that the skulls and the Yautja's possessions have already been delivered to him. He has already analysed the xenomorph skull and has figured out that this creature, this wondrous creature, has adapted to survive and thrive in the harshest of environments, and he is currently thanking thanking the Yautja for introducing him to the Xenomorphs. The Yautja is tied up and restrained to a contraption near the Doctor, and when Reinstadt turns around, we see that his inhumane experiment started with himself, and that he likely introduced spider DNA into his system because he has 4 eyes and pincers like the spiders. He reveals to the Yautja that he was the one who created the animal hybrids that captured him, and though the Yautja is quite an impressive creature himself, he is nothing compared to the perfection of the Xenomorphs. With this statement, Reinstadt thrusts a vat towards the Predator, and we learn that the Doctor has already managed to create a facehugger using the DNA from the Xenomorph skull. It only took a day for him to create this replica, thanks to the advanced gene technology he has been perfecting for decades, and right now he is going to see what the ultimate form of this creature looks like. Reinstadt pulls out the facehugger from the vat and tries to attach it to the Yautja's face, but unfortunately, this is when he is interrupted by Buck. Reinstadt doesn't like being interrupted when he is working, but this is important. They have a problem on their hands. Their scouts have reported trespassers, and this is when Reinstadt calmly dismisses Buck, because he already knows about the judges and the Archbishop emoji. He knew about them as soon as they tripped his sensors around the swamp, and he ordered Buck to bring him the judges once they had been captured. He plans to use them for his xenomorph experiments as well, but this is when Buck reveals that these aren't the trespassers he is talking about. He is talking about another set of trespassers, 4 to be precise, 4 trespassers who failed to trigger their alarms and who are already in the swamp. We then see that Buck is talking about a hunting party made up of 4 predators who are currently analysing and assessing the area around the distress beacon. Predator vs. Judge Dredd vs. Aliens. Issue 2, Collision Course. We started this issue 5 years ago when Judge Dredd was reporting on duty for a crime committed in the city orphanage BD 3630 in the Melissa Gilbert block. It was the robo-matron of the orphanage who reported the crime because a maniacal genetic scientist named Niels Reinstadt had conducted and forced genetic experiments on the children. Robo-matron was naturally livid, and Dredd did his best to remain calm around the children, who were now abominations, hybrids between humans and insects like mosquitoes and flies. Reinstadt had also taken one of the children hostage, and Dredd quickly tracked him down and found him holding the child hostage on top of one of the buildings nearby. We now switch back to the present time, where the hunting party of the predators is using their skills to track and find out what exactly happened at the site of the distress beacon that summoned them to this planet. This party was returning from a hunt when they spotted the distress signal and responded to it. After studying the marks in the dirt, they quickly figure out that one of their own was pursued, injured and captured in their region. But what captured their brethren was another mystery, because all around this site were strange animal footprints, too big for the species of this planet, as well as trails belonging to some sort of land-based vehicle native to the planet. This is evidence of some sort of vehicular pursuit, and as they come to this conclusion, we see what happened an hour ago in the swamp. The judges had managed to catch up with the Archbishop emoji, which had resulted in a high-speed chase. Dredd had tried to get the Archbishop to surrender, but the quirky robot had simply decided to do his best to escape. The predators then find shell casings on the ground, and this is evidence of the gunfight that soon started between the judges and the Archbishop. The Archbishop blindly fired his SMG behind him as the judges chased him, and he managed to clock Judge Gilligan directly in the chest. His blood is found by the predators in the present time as they continue to track their movements, and we see Gilligan complaining and moaning when he is hit. Dredd simply ordered him to save his whining for when the job was done, and he had then switched to armor-piercing rounds on his lawgiver. The subsequent shots from his handgun severely injured the Archbishop, who simply responded with a disheartened WTF and a couple of sad face emojis. The predators, meanwhile, end up finding what remains of the Archbishop's vehicle, and this puzzles them even more. They don't know what to make of this, or the synthetic internal combustion lubricant scattered all around them. This clearly belongs to some kind of machinery, but even Bosu, their leader, who has hunted on this planet before, doesn't know what to make of it. We then see that this crash happened once Dredd had switched to high explosive rounds on his handgun. The resulting shot had blown the Archbishop to smithereens, and his dismembered hands are quickly found by the predators in the current time. The Archbishop was barely alive when Dredd and the rest of them had walked over to him and charged him with at least 24 crimes. After charging him, task. His sentence was decided to be termination of operations, but before Dredd could pull the trigger, he was distracted by Anderson's groans as she informed him that the area around them was brimming with psychic energy. Little did they know that they were all surrounded by Reinstadt's hybrids, and the very next second, the judges were ambushed. The hybrids leapt out of the trees and began attacking the judges, and the evidence of this ambush is found by the predators as they continue to track the events in real time. They find Gilligan's tooth, which he lost when he was knocked out by the bear hybrid. We then see the baboon hybrid knocking Anderson and Dredd out by slamming them against each other, and before long the fight was over and all the judges were taken back to Reinstadt's lab. These findings are enough for the predators to conclude that the humans were ambushed by the same creatures who captured their brethren. So naturally, they began hunting for the hybrids. But this time, unlike the Yautja before, they would go in prepared, armed to the teeth and completely out of sight. We then see the hunting party preparing their weapons and then finally triggering their chameleon field, which renders them instantly invisible in the middle of the swamp. This surprising development is witnessed by a hybrid who was seemingly assigned to keep a close eye on the hunting party. Unfortunately for him, that's going to be a very difficult job from now on. We are then introduced to Reinstadt's lab, which is surrounded by a primitive village where his hybrids reside. Inside the lab, Reinstadt walks through the corridor as the bear hybrid named Gobi informs him that the predators simply vanished into thin air out of nowhere, which made it impossible for him to track them. Reinstadt is disappointed in the hybrid, and the resulting conversation reveals that Reinstadt likes to call his hybrids animans. As they reach his lab, we see that all 4 judges have been strapped and restrained to individual gurneys, and this is when Dredd begins to slowly come back to consciousness. The ensuing confrontation between Dredd and Reinstadt reminds Judge of his encounter with the mad geneticist 5 years ago and what had happened back then. Dredd had quickly tracked down the doctor to the roof of the building, and when the latter had refused to come in quietly, Dredd had simply sentenced him to death and had pulled the trigger. The doctor's brain was blown to smithereens, and Dredd had assumed that his reign of terror was over, but sadly for Dredd, that was never the true Reinstadt. In the present day, Reinstadt reveals that the person Dredd killed that day was simply a genetic clone that Reinstadt had forcefully created by infecting a person whom he had kidnapped. He had dosed the random person with enough psychane to go on a murder spree so that they would take the blame for his crimes and ultimately allow him to continue his experiments. Anderson informs Dredd under her breath that Reinstadt is truly evil and is brimming with enough anger to destroy the world, and upon hearing this, Reinstadt laughs and continues to boast about his past. At first, he started by mixing insectoid genes with human genes to create hybrids, but the results were mixed and highly unstable. Once he left Megacity 1 and established a base here in the Alabama morass, he realized that using the DNA of mammalian creatures was the key to success. That's how he created his kingdom in the swamp. But now he has something bigger to look forward to, something much better than his own formula, the ultimate perfect concoction of genes that fell out of the sky and into his lap. Reinstadt then holds up the alien skull and pulls out a serum as Dredd screams for him to stop in the background. Reinstadt continues to smile like a maniac as he explains to Dredd how he started by infusing the xenomorph DNA with his own formula, but ultimately it did not yield the desired results. The process was almost instantaneous, yes, but not perfect, not beautiful like the xenomorph. He then takes the failed serum he had created and infects Judge McCrary with it, and continues to explain the effects of his concoction as the changes take place in real time. McCrary instantly transforms, grows sharp fangs and an inner jaw like the xenomorph, while his skin begins to decay and decompose rapidly. McCrary begins to snarl and growl animalistically as Reinstadt continues his villainous monologue by revealing the facehugger to the remaining judges. What Reinstadt had tried to achieve for all these years, what he had tried to create over the past decades, a perfect harmony between disparate sets of DNA, had already been done by this creature we know as the xenomorph. He shows them all the facehugger, explains that this is the second stage of life for these creatures, and then forces it onto Gilligan's face as the latter desperately screams and does his best to get out of the way. According to Reinstadt, this creature is a genetic masterpiece, but Dredd already knew that. He had faced these creatures before. What he wants to know is how Reinstadt knows so much about the xenomorphs, and though he doesn't tell Dredd, the mangled corpse of the Yautja he captured earlier tells us all we need to know. The Predator is dead, and his torso has been ripped open from the inside out. This is when Buck arrives on the scene and pulls Reinstadt away for something important. And Anderson uses this opportunity to inform Dredd that they will have to come up with something soon, because it doesn't look like McCrary's restraints will be able to contain him for long. Meanwhile, Buck informs Reinstadt that the aliens they had lost have apparently been found, but unfortunately for them, they are currently massacring the village outside their lab. And these creatures are no joke. They have killed most of the Animans, and though Reinstadt has something planned for them, they can't just wait here and watch. Reinstadt grabs his other facehugger specimens along with Buck and orders Gobi to bring Anderson along for their escape. Anderson uses her psychic abilities to find out what Reinstadt has planned for her, but Reinstadt saves her the trouble and reveals to everyone that he plans on using her as the host for the Xenomorph Queen. Dredd hurls abuses at Reinstadt, and though the latter rarely holds a grudge, Dredd did kill him, even if it was a clone, and so Reinstadt orders his computer to disengage the locks and quarantine the room with a force field. It's time Reinstadt returns the favour, and Dredd remains restrained to the gurney as an infected McCrary and the Predalian slowly stalk and approach him to make their kill. Predator vs. Judge Dredd vs. Aliens, Issue 3 Savage Science. We now get a background on Archbishop Emoji and how he was able to establish his cult. Emoji's cult was based on a book of code that only he could interpret, a code that told of a reckoning and promised absolution to those who brought salvation upon Mega City 1. In reality, all of this was a lie. Emoji never believed in this. He never believed the prophecy or the lies he sold to the public. He knew there was no divine motive to his plans. It was all 100% crap. The truth of the matter simply was that Archbishop Emoji truly and vehemently hated humans. But when Emoji was chased and almost executed by the judges, his hate alone couldn't save him, and in that moment he was desperate. So desperate, in fact, that when the Animans ambushed the judges and in turn saved him, he began believing in divine intervention. Why else would his life be spared through such convenient coincidences? He had perceived these genetic hybrids to be some sort of heavenly agents who saved his life and then spared it. In reality, however, the Animans were simply following orders, and their orders never told them about Emoji or what to do with him, so they simply left him on the swamp floor and carried the judges back to the lab. But this was enough to give Emoji something new, something he had never believed in, faith, and thus, instead of hate, Emoji was now fueled by faith. He now had faith that this place in the Alabama morass was where he would find salvation and the apocalypse that he so desperately wanted. This was a place of miracles after all, miracles and monstrosities. Monstrosities, like the Predalian, who is about to attack Dredd. Judge Dredd, however, is unfazed. He is still ordering Reinstadt to stand down and surrender in exchange for a lenient sentence, and this baffles the Mad Doctor. How could Dredd still be thinking about upholding the law? But Buck quickly snaps the Doctor out of his confusion and ushers him outside. They have no time to wait around because the predators outside are closing in on them. We then see that the predators have completely destroyed the Animan village outside. Most of Reinstadt's hybrids are dead. The hunters are taking trophies by the numbers, and Reinstadt can't figure out how this can happen. There are only 4 of them. How can they wreak such havoc when it was so easy to capture one of them? Buck explains to him that these aliens were prepared, unlike their brother, who had crash-landed and was quickly outnumbered and ambushed. This is when Anderson chimes in and warns them that Dredd is going to make them pay for what they are doing, and this prompts Reinstadt to turn around and brutally describe what is going to happen to her once the alien queen's facehugger is attached to her face. Anderson quickly closes her eyes and seemingly passes out. Reinstadt and his Animans assume that she is simply scared, but little do they know that she is using her psychic abilities to help Dredd. Dredd, meanwhile, is screaming screaming at McCrary to snap out of his daze and to remember his training. And though he can be a bit big-headed at times, he has gotten one thing right. There's still a bit of human DNA left in McCrary, which is why Anderson is able to take control of him and prevent the Predalien from attacking Judge Dredd. Anderson then channels herself through McCrary and explains everything to Dredd. Whatever human DNA is left in McCrary is fading fast, which is why Anderson has no choice but to free Dredd quickly. She won't have enough control to continue the fight for too long, which is why she pleads with Dredd to make his escape while she covers him, and thus McCrary fights the Predalien in the background while Dredd quickly grabs Gilligan in his arms and makes his escape. Once outside, he is baffled by the massacre that awaits him. Hundreds of Animans, gutted and strung up like animals. What the hell happened here? Unfortunately, he has lost his telepathic connection with Anderson, and she is unable to provide him with any answers. Dredd takes this moment to stare at Gilligan. Losing McCrary today was enough. He isn't going to lose him too. However, a projectile comes whizzing through the air and stabs Gilligan directly in the chest. It's one of the Yautjas, and in Dredd's book, he just made a big mistake by killing one of his associates. Dredd punches the Predator in the face, and in return, he gets punched back. He then leaps at the creature, but before he can throw another punch, he hears a familiar voice telling him to stop. It's Anderson, and she tells him that the Predators are friendly. She tells him that Yautjas helped save her from Reinstadt. They captured Reinstadt and his Animans, confiscated his facehuggers, and then locked him in the cell in their spaceship. One of the Yautja is still guarding them back at the ship. Anderson established a telepathic connection with them, which allowed them to understand each other, and through it, Anderson learned their code of honor, which is the reason why they allowed Reinstadt and his Animans to live once he surrendered. Dredd understands all of this, but he is still angry about Gilligan's death. Though the Predators may think that he was long gone and couldn't be saved, they don't know about the medical tech at their disposal back in Mega City 1. However, this is when Anderson corrects him and tells him to let go of his emotions. The creatures know loss. They know what the Xenomorphs can do. They have seen it firsthand. This is when their leader removes his biomask and reveals his extremely disfigured face due to the xenomorph blood. Anderson then reveals the reason they are working with them is because the Predators want to hunt down the xenomorph hybrids that Reinstadt created in their absence, so that they can make sure the creatures don't spread on the planet. This is something Dredd can get behind, and once he is on board, Anderson hands him his lawgiver, and they all head out into the swamp to hunt down what remains of McCrary and the Predalien himself. When Anderson had control of McCrary, she was able to injure the Predalien, which is why the Predators are able to track their prey using the trail of blood. As for McCrary, he was a judge, and judges aren't exactly known for being stealthy in their approach. They should have no trouble finding him, and Anderson is right, because seconds later, McCrary ambushes one of the Predators from the treetops. Dredd and Anderson, meanwhile, spot the Predalien up in the trees and quickly start firing at it. One of the Predators, meanwhile, rushes to his team member's aid to save him from McCrary, and before the creature can gravely injure his comrade, he quickly grabs it and stabs it through the torso with his wrist blades. Unfortunately, this covers him in acid blood, and the resulting thirst for revenge drives the remaining Predator and judges to blast the two creatures to smithereens. The injured Predator is hoisted up to his feet by Bosu, their leader, and though the Predator survives, his plasma caster, unfortunately, has been destroyed by McCrary's assault. As Dredd watches the dying Predator's body slowly turn to ash under the effects of the acid blood, he finally accepts the fact that Gilligan was too far gone. He couldn't have gotten him back to Mega City 1 on time, but this doesn't mean that the aliens get a free pass on Dredd's planet. He tells Anderson to communicate to them that he wants the creatures gone as soon as possible. Anderson, being Anderson, is already 2 steps ahead of Dredd. She has already negotiated this deal with Bosu. Not only will the creatures leave the planet along with the facehugger specimens, but they will also leave Reinstadt and his Animans behind so that they can be prosecuted for their actions. In the background, the injured Predator tries to get in touch with his partner back at the ship through the gauntlet. However, to everyone's surprise, it is Reinstadt who responds to the message. The mad scientist reveals that the Predator standing guard on the ship has been killed by them, and what's more, they have taken command of the alien spaceship. A livid Anderson screams into the gauntlet and demands answers, and this is when Reinstadt, laughing like a maniac, maniac, tells her that he's simply made a new friend who rescued him. This new friend is Archbishop Emoji, who is able to control the Yautja ship fairly easily thanks to his advanced tech, and he and Reinstadt have decided to help each other. They both have a mutual interest and a mutual purpose, even though one is a man of faith and the other a man of science. As the camera pans, we see the desecrated remains of all of the Animans that accompanied Reinstadt to the Yautja ship. They all have a huge gaping hole in their torsos, which means that Reinstadt already has an army of hybrid xenomorphs at his disposal. He then tells Anderson that they're headed to Mega City 1 right now. Archbishop Emoji is going to deliver his salvation, while Reinstadt is going to deliver his apocalypse. The last panel gives us a glimpse at the xenomorph hybrids, now infused with the DNA of rhino, elephant, bear, and buck. Predator vs. Judge Dredd vs. Aliens. Issue 4, Mega City Overrun. Mega City 1 has a population of 800 million people, which for Reinstadt means 800 million targets, and for Archbishop Emoji means 800 million victims. Emoji founded his apocalyptic death cult on the promise that he would deliver glorious death to all non-believers. After the judges ran him out of town, he sent a broadcast to his followers from exile, promising that tonight would be the glorious night of his return. He ordered his congregation to gather outside their church and promised that the faithful and devout would have a front row seat for the coming Armageddon. He promised them a cataclysm. He promised them carnage, the likes of which they had never seen, but he never once promised them that any of them would survive. And thus, as the Yautja spaceship reaches Mega City 1, it heads straight for Archbishop Emoji's church, and upon reaching the location, the 4 xenomorphs are let loose on all his followers waiting down below. The creatures rip, tear, and shred flesh like they're meant to, and both Reinstadt and Emoji watch this carnage unfold from the spaceship. Emoji may see this as salvation, as cleansing, as the destruction of humanity, but Reinstadt sees something much bigger here. He tells Emoji that this is a new beginning for humanity. To everyone's surprise, Reinstadt then pulls out a syringe full of one of his serums and infects himself with it. Once that is done, he pulls out a pistol and kills Archbishop Emoji. 2 hours after this incident, Dredd, Anderson, and the 2 Predators finally arrive in Mega City 1 aboard the Yautja ship that had first crash-landed in the swamp. Dredd is livid that it took them so long, but Anderson tells him to be thankful that they were able to get this almost destroyed vessel back up and running again. Upon reaching the city, Dredd instantly contacts the Hall of Justice and requests as much backup as possible for the Willie Ames block, the place where Emoji's church is located. But to his surprise, the responding officer instead orders Judge Dredd to come in for questioning. After all, he is aboard an alien spaceship with 2 aliens, and though he is claiming that an extraterrestrial attack is happening in the Ames block, they have received no reports so far. Dredd tries to make the responding officer realise the situation, but he tries to explain how dire things are, but the officer simply refuses to believe him as there is no concrete evidence to support his claims. All they've had from Willie Ames' block are a couple of reports of animal noises, and though Dredd screams over the comms that those animals are likely the extraterrestrials he is talking about, the officer begrudgingly agrees to send in an animal control unit while still ordering Dredd to show up for assessment. Ultimately, Dredd is forced to turn off his comms and accept the fact that they will have to do this job on their own, and Anderson, for once in her career, gets to give him the "I told you so" look. Thankfully, they already have a backup in the form of the 2 Yautja, itching to go on a widespread hunt in this concrete jungle that Dredd and Anderson like to call home. The ship lands, and as soon as they step out, they realise that the streets are littered with bodies, and among them is Archbishop Emoji. Dredd knows that a simple massacre isn't the end goal of Reinstadt. He would be itching to create more xenomorphs, which makes it imperative that they get their hands on him before it's too late. Unfortunately, Anderson can't detect him using her psionic abilities, and though the Predators try to split them up into groups of 2, Dredd doesn't let it happen because he won't let another race of extraterrestrials be let loose in his city. The Predators end up agreeing with him as their knowledge of the city would prove beneficial in the hunt. However, the 2 of them are eager to watch how Dredd plans to keep up with them. As the Predators track down recent kills, they find an area with a lot of blood but very few bodies. This could only mean one thing, that the creatures are taking hostages to make them hosts for more xenomorphs. We then head to a nearby dark alley where a man is busy dealing drugs to an addict. The 2 of them are then ambushed by one of the xenomorph hybrids, specifically the one Buck turned into, but thankfully Luckily, Dredd and the rest of them show up to save them in the nick of time. The men thank Dredd, but he sentences them to 16 months in an ISO cube for dealing and buying drugs. Then, we see the elephant xenomorph hybrid attacking a woman outside the Conapt construction site on level 53, and though Dredd tries to stop the creature, he quickly gets smacked in the face by its tail, which thankfully doesn't stab him due to his helmet. This hybrid's inner jaw is attached to its elephant trunk, and before it can stab Dredd through the head, Bosu and his associate blast the creature with the plasma caster and then stab it with the combistic. Next down on level 14 near the agrodome, they find their next target, the bear xenomorph hybrid. But before Dredd pulls the trigger, Anderson stops him because the creature isn't killing its victim this time. It's taking them somewhere, and Dredd makes the call that they should follow it from a safe distance. The creature leads them to an abandoned reclaim site, and when they enter it, they realize that they're already too late. The floor is littered with dozens of alien eggs, which means that Reinstadt's plan of creating new xenomorphs is already afoot. They quickly barge into the site to save the civilians that still live, but this is when Dredd's excitement gets the better of him, and he fails to notice the xenomorph waiting to ambush them on the roof. Bosu's remaining associate steps in the way, which unfortunately gets him killed as the creature uses its tail to stab the predator through the torso. Enraged, everyone jumps into action. However, this is when the Rhino-Xenomorph hybrid shows up and joins the fight. It destroys Anderson's lawgiver using its tail, and Bosu rushes in to save her. Dredd, meanwhile, barely holds the other alien back, who quickly chooses to attack Bosu instead, as he is the bigger threat. With only Dredd with a functioning lawgiver, it's time for some drastic measures. Thus, he switches to incendiary rounds at maximum temperatures and burns both the xenomorphs to a crisp. He has saved Bosu's life, though the predator is in no shape to continue the fight. Dredd attends to Bosu like a friend, and after making sure that he will survive, he decides to head in deeper along with Anderson. To his surprise, Anderson is nowhere to be seen, and we see that she is already deep into the facility and is using her telepathic abilities to locate Reinstadt now that she has a lock on him. When facehuggers begin emerging from nearby eggs, she quickly runs away and then stumbles on the source of this entire infestation, a hybrid xenomorph queen, and this one has 4 eyes just like Reinstadt. Instead of backing away, Anderson gets in the Queen's face because she knows this is Reinstadt, and he has infected himself with the Queen serum that was originally intended for her. She continues to mock him and continues to call him ugly until Reinstadt is forced to respond. The Queen opens its mouth and, instead of an inner jaw, inside is a spider's face, complete with fangs. This is what remains of Reinstadt, and though he didn't realise it yet, Anderson was simply distracting him so that Dredd could make his move. Bosu lent his gauntlet to Dredd so that he could use the chameleon field, and once he is in the perfect position, he reveals himself, steps in between the Queen and Anderson and screams, "Time's up for you, scum, lawgiver, high explosive, deploy all rounds," and the trusty handgun does as it's told. The Queen and the entire nest are blown away, and Dredd shoots down any facehuggers that stand in their way as they run outside. Anderson grabs the surviving civilians, Dredd grabs an injured Bosu, and they all finally leave the nest as flames engulf the entire block behind them. Knowing that the HQ will be all over the incident, he contacts Control, orders backup like he did before, and ends the call with the following words: "And after this is done, officer, you and me are going to have words about why you didn't send backup the first time I ordered it." The officer, scared for his life, does as he's told, and Dredd then escorts Bosu back to his ship and wishes him a final goodbye. Anderson has been their translator all along, and Bosu's last words to Dredd through her are that he's a worthy warrior, and the best compliment he can offer Dredd is the fact that he finds Dredd to be worthy enough to challenge him in a single combat. Dredd nods, accepts the compliment, but then goes back to being himself by saying, "Yeah, okay, tell him he's not too bad either. Now let him know I want him off this planet. He can take his trophy and go. Come back and he'll be violating the law. Earth's law and my law. Make sure you tell the rest of your people too. Earth is off limits." If a predator could smile, then so would Bosu, because after giving Dredd a chuckling look, he boards the Yautja ship and flies off into space,